Mechanics of Reddit. What's the strangest thing you ever found inside a customer's car? The day I found a hidden compartment inside a customer's SUV, I accidentally reopened a missing persons case that had gone cold for almost 8 years. I've been an auto mechanic for nearly 20 years, and I found everything from cash to wedding rings to live snakes under car seats. By then, I figured nothing could surprise me anymore. That afternoon, an older dark green SUV rolled into our independent shop on a tow truck after the owner hit a massive pothole. The front suspension was bent, and a damaged wiring harness behind one of the rear interior panels needed replacing. It looked like a routine insurance repair. I pulled off the plastic trim in the cargo area, expecting to reach the wiring. Instead, my pry tool caught on something solid behind the metal body panel. There was a small rectangular box welded inside the frame. It definitely wasn't factory. Someone had carefully covered it with matching insulation and trim so nobody would ever notice it. The lid wasn't locked. It was held shut with 2 tiny screws that looked much newer than the vehicle itself. Curiosity got the better of me. Inside sat an old flip phone wrapped in a plastic bag, 3 faded photographs, a folded hand-drawn map with several locations circled in red ink, and a sealed envelope. Across the front, in shaky handwriting, were the words, "If anyone finds this, please don't throw it away." I just stared at it. None of it looked valuable, but it felt important. I called my service manager over, and we agreed not to touch anything else until we contacted the customer. When she arrived, she looked completely confused. She said she'd only bought the SUV from a used car lot about 4 months earlier. She'd never seen any of it before. She even asked if we were sure it had come from her vehicle. We showed her the compartment before removing anything else. She immediately told us to call the police. About an hour later, 2 detectives arrived. They photographed everything exactly where it sat before carefully removing the contents. One detective opened the envelope while we watched. Inside was a short handwritten note explaining that whoever found the compartment should give everything to law enforcement because someone disappeared and people have been looking in the wrong place. Nobody in the room spoke. The detectives exchanged a look I still remember. One of them quietly asked for the vehicle's VIN. He stepped outside to make a phone call. When he came back, his expression had completely changed. He told us the SUV had originally belonged to a man who disappeared years earlier during a missing persons investigation that had made local news across several counties. The vehicle had changed owners multiple times since then. No one had ever discovered the hidden compartment. Over the next few weeks, detectives kept us updated. The flip phone still powered on after specialists recovered its data. It contained old text messages that investigators had never seen because nobody even knew the phone existed. The faded photographs showed landmarks that matched several places marked on the handwritten map. One location stood out, a remote hunting cabin deep in the woods. Investigators checked old case files and realized something unbelievable. The cabin had never been searched. It wasn't owned by the missing man, wasn't listed in his records, and had never been connected to him in any obvious way. Without that map, detectives would have had no reason to look there. The search didn't instantly solve every mystery. Real life doesn't work like that. But investigators found enough evidence around the property to finally reconstruct what had happened during the man's final days. The hidden phone, the map, and the photographs filled in critical gaps that detectives had spent years trying to explain. Months later, one of the detectives stopped by our shop. He thanked us for reporting everything instead of tossing it in the trash. He said the new evidence gave the missing man's family answers they'd been waiting almost a decade to hear. Not every question was answered, but the uncertainty was finally over. I still think about that SUV whenever I remove an interior panel. People always ask me if the strangest thing I've ever found was the flip phone or the hidden compartment. It wasn't. The strangest part was realizing that what started as a simple suspension repair became the missing piece of a mystery that had haunted an entire community for years. Sometimes the biggest discoveries aren't buried in some secret bunker. Sometimes they're sitting quietly behind a plastic trim panel, waiting for an ordinary mechanic to notice one screw that doesn't belong.